Good day. Welcome to the podcast with Gavin, the Welsh Dragon, and Marvin, the East Midlands.
Marvin
I don't know.
Burton.
I can call you the Welsh Dragon, but what can we call me? I need a stage name.
Oh, God.
The Caramel Kid don't work. It brings in racial prejudice and problems. Can't do that nowadays. Mocker Man also refers to.
It's a bit controversial, isn't it?
You get away with it 10 years ago.
Could just go with straight sex machine, couldn't we?
Yeah, but that's also probably going to land me with other difficulties. We'll get feedback. Wow.
Well,
I
listened to that podcast you did with Gabby the other day, Marv. What was all that about?
Yeah. Kev said you're a sex machine. What happened when you was in Taiwan? Funny that, yeah. Well, we'll get the people from that, what was it called? The Star Hotel or whatever it was in Taiwan. The messaging saying, yeah, them two guys used to stay at our hotel every couple of months. They used to stay there, and we used to put a couple of condoms in the room, and they were always missing. They're always gone.
Was it every time? It was a featherlight one on the pillow.
Featherlight condom on the pillow, and they came in every day, changed the bed, and left us 2 condoms. Funny thing was, I kept taking them, and they kept replacing them. They must have thought, wow, they're using them.
They're at it. Those two are at it.
Don't know why I give them single beds. Never mind.
They don't even push them together or anything.
No, I tell you what, the best thing about going there, not that particular hotel, I think it was those sweet potato wedges we used to get.
Oh, mate, they were deadly. That was Tai Chung, though.
That was Tai Chung, yeah.
When we used to go get there. Was it that smelly tofu that was around the corner?
Stinky tofu, yeah.
That was horrendous.
Living in China, they used to walk around with like these little old school like ice cream vans, like like the old ones with like 2 wheels, like a stall. And if you saw him coming, I'd been, get across the road, he's coming.
Hey, I couldn't handle that.
Everyone swears by it there. You go to work, they're eating tea-stained eggs, chicken feet, and stinky tofu. I'm like, no wonder your breath smells. Because none of the food that you're eating, it all smells rancid. Like, no, it tastes great.
Is it fermented, the tofu?
Fermented, yeah. It's fermented tofu. I'm sure it's great for you. I
remember we walked like 2 miles around the block just to get away from the smell, to get somewhere else.
Yeah, try living there. That's what I did for a year.
No, I couldn't do that.
Jesus. Right, we're talking about that. When we used to see it, it was a quick reaction. Heart rate would fly up. So that leads us to our topic today, which is high intensity interval training. And is it right for you?
Heart rate fly up. Maybe I have to do more aerobics just to get on the block, just to go everywhere else.
My heart rate was 99, trying to get away from stinky tofu. Anyway,
so is high intensity interval training right for me?
I think that's the question, and it's something that I face. It's the misinterpretation of it, and what it is and what it needs to be, and it's a mixture of miseducation, people trying to do what they consider. I mean, they're trying to do. I tell you what it is. It's not miseducation. It's misunderstanding, which is probably the same thing, but it's all done with the right intention, which means they're not miseducated. They are trying to do the right thing. They're just misunderstanding how to do it. They're probably going off the fact that to get high intensity, you need to get your heart rate over 85%, which already has a lot of questions to it. And that's just someone's interpretation of it, because other people might say it doesn't have to be 85%. It might just be elevated higher than your usual.
Yeah.
So there's so many different interpretations of it that the stigma is, it's good for me because it burns fat. So I'll do it regularly, which is already another topic conversation. I'll try and get my heart rate as high as possible. And the only way of doing that is plyometric exercise. So jumping up and down, burpees, I'll lift up a weight above my head as many times as I can. And then when I put it down, I'll then start jumping over the weight like a little bunny rabbit. Yep. It's just, you know what I mean? So where did we start with unpicking this?
So for me, I know what you mean, because people think they're doing HiiT, number one. And in essence, they're just doing interval training.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
They're not doing high intensity interval training, they're just doing interval training.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing they need to understand is what intensity is. So, for example, if you look at intensity, when we define this in terms of strength and conditioning, we would define intensity as weight on the bar. So the higher the weight, the more intense it is.
Yeah.
So if I'm, for example, doing 100%, or let's say a 1 or 2 reps or 3 reps, that's going to be more intense than doing 10 reps, right? Mm-hmm. So now you have to put that into, for example, conditioning work. So high intensity interval training, liken it to power output. So if the way, let's say I'm going to lift 2 reps or 3 reps with the bar, and it's heavy weight, how much rest do I need to be able to lift that weight again for the same amount of reps? Mm. Typically, when you go that low in repetitions and high in weight, your nervous system typically takes 5 to 7 times longer than the muscular system to recover. Mm-hmm. So you're going to need to extend your rest period out to allow you to lift that same weight again with the same intensity for the same amount of reps, with the same quality. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And let me stop you there, because that's the issue. Because people are wearing heart rate monitors to do this, and they're not thinking about the nervous system. They're thinking about what the number says on the screen.
Yeah.
That's where my problem is, because you mentioned their recovery period. For it to be high intensity, you've got to get the recovery period to get to that high level again.
Yeah.
Because they're constantly going with no rest or very little rest, they never get to that same level of intensity. Yeah. So it just becomes a really short, bad workout.
Well, this where it goes into, once you start to break those parameters down, and then you can start to layer in the rest periods correctly. So let's transfer this back now over to proper conditioning stuff. So let's say you're on a watt bike or you're on a rower, for example. What is the type of power output or the wattage that I would do within, and I'm talking like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Like the proper power output. Mm-hmm. So if you're looking at high intensity, people, like, what's one of the most common interval training sessions that people would do is probably Tabata.
Yeah.
Like 10 seconds on, 20 seconds off. 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off, right? Now you could probably do reverse Tabata as well, which is 10 on, 20 off, but let's go with 20 on, 10 off. If they do a true Tabata, like on a proper like Wingate or like even a watt bike or something like that, you're dead after 4 minutes. Like you literally cannot do anything else.
Yeah.
And so there was a trainer in a gym that I was in before. He was doing intervals with his clients, Tabata intervals for 45 minutes.
Yeah. See it all the time.
How the fuck can you do 45 minutes of Tabata?
You see it up and down down the country gyms.
So with that in mind, the intensity isn't there.
Yeah.
That means the intensity is lower, which in essence, if you can keep continuing to do that, you're basically working your aerobic system.
Yeah.
So by default, it's not intense. It's just aerobics.
Yeah.
Right. So go back to the watt bike power output, for example. If you're going to hit, let's say, 1,000 watts of power in 10 seconds, if I gave you 10 seconds rest, there's no way you're getting that power again. It's impossible to repeat that power output again within 10 seconds. Mm-hmm. You're probably going to need 4, maybe 5 minutes to recover enough to hit that 10 seconds hard enough to repeat that power output again.
Yeah.
So this is where it's like 10 seconds off, 3 to 5 minutes rest. Mm-hmm. And people are like, oh, I got a bit more calories than that.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. The
and
gamification of it. Yeah. And I think that's it. The gamification of it, or that chasing the number, and, we'll name it as well. You got things like My Zone, which are great for motivation. And it's almost like what when we talked about sort of technology in a previous episode, and smartwatches and all that. And it's a starting point, and it's good. It's a good starting point. It's a motivator. It keeps people interested. It's just the regularity of it as well. And that rest period. I mean, you're talking about the rest in between the intervals. And I frequently say, when I've given training on high intensity, I also talk about the recovery between sessions, because the only way I can get it through to personal trainers, because that's essentially who I'm delivering training to. I'm teaching other coaches how to do this. Is I just say to them, pick a sport, and they might say football. I go, right, pick a player that everyone knows. They say Cristiano Ronaldo, and I say, how many games does he play in a week? On a bad week in a busy part of the season, he has 2 games a week. That's if it's Christmas or there's a Champions League game, and the coach won't always play him 90 minutes because they'll have to, might take him off after 70. Depends on your opponent, but where they can get rest, they'll take it. But if it's in the A category game, against a tough opponent, he's playing, he's starting, he's got to be fresh. The point I'm trying to make is, would he play Saturday, go training on Sunday or Monday, and play like he would in a game again? Like, no. We know from the work we've done with football clubs in the past, the intensity of a session in season isn't matched in training. It's a lower level. And now relate that back to the gym. You get a personal trainer that's doing Tabatas for 45 minutes. You also get personal trainers where the client sits down and says, I need to lose body fat. And they're saying, right, we'll do 4 HiiT training sessions a week. Or even worse than that, do it every morning when you wake up. We're going to do a 20-minute HiiT session every morning when you wake up fasted.
Yeah.
And you just like, why? Because you just pouring more and more, fire on the coal on the fire. You're just making it.
You've got to look at the stress situation as well. I think we've spoken about stress in the past couple of talks we've had, but it's like if somebody's really stressed out and you actually do like full on proper hard interval training, you're just adding potential fuel to the fire there. So they're already sympathetic. You're adding more sympathetic stuff on top. So yes, they're going to burn calories. Yes, they might lose a bit of weight and a bit of body fat, but it's like a certain limit that they're going to be able to handle at that point before they crash and burn. So it might work in the interim, like in the short term, but that's where it's like when students come on board and we start to talk about program design and what they're going to program, it's like they get excited by methods and then all of a sudden we go into periodization. And I'm like, right, why have you put that there? Because it's in essence, if you put that there, there's got to be something you're planning in the future for that to work correctly.
Yeah.
Right. So it's not about just, right, let's thrash you a bit. Let's burn as many calories as we can, which is typically what happens. Like the my zone thing, like it's red zone, red zone, red zone.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy. Like you get to 100, like 100% of your max heart rates every session.
Yeah.
Nice one. There's only so many people that can do that.
Yeah.
And you're basically just crushing people. And granted, people have got 3 to 4 sessions a week to come in, so you've got to maximize their time. But if you're smart with things, there's ways you can see fitness improve. There's ways you can, there's ways you can get them to do lighter activity outside the gym so they can recover, like you just mentioned. How hard can we go that you can recover from and still burn body fat so you can actually get over what we're giving you in the gym? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know if you can hear it, but I'm going to describe the bee that's just flown in my office.
I can't even hear it.
Got to be at least an inch big. It's massive. Put it this way, the buzz that it's making it feels like it's in HD. It's massive.
You scared?
I'm not at all, but I've got to get him out of here.
This is not a spider, mate.
Yeah, guess what? The owner's talking about him. He's on his way out. If it was a spider, mate, you wouldn't see him here for that. Gone. It's gone. You don't want to kill it. They're endangered, aren't they, beast? But that was a big beast. That was a good size.
I could see you looking around the laptop thinking, oh my God, he's panicking here. What's going on?
Basically, it flew in here.
In the room.
It was going to attack me. It was fight or flight, that was. But you saw me. It was like a lion coming at you. Stay calm. Right? Stay low. Keep your eye on it. And just look for the next move. You saw me. I phased it out. I mean, he heard us talking about it. Backed off. He's like, I don't want a piece of this smoke. I said, you don't need it, mate. Flexed up one bicep. And he was like, whoa, get out of here. Flew away. He's endangered, not me.
I love our chats.
There's only one of me. There's more of him than me, yet he's endangered. Work that one out. Get back on the HiiT training.
Bloody hell. Right. So where do we leave that? Stressing people out. Okay.
Stress loads.
So you're stressing people out with that. And that's where, when you start to plan the periodization on it, like you imagine you take this, and I think it was another topic I saw you talk about, or we were chatting about, talking about, was doing more, eating less.
Yeah.
Is that a good scenario? And typically, like, we can put that in this bracket a little bit right now, is that once things start to plateau, people don't get the results, they either put their training up and then they take more calories away at the same time as well.
Yeah.
When probably the best thing to do is, if they eat less, they probably should do less. And if they eat more, then they can actually do more. Or if they're going to do more, they put the calories up. So you can, and that's when it goes in, that's when the hormonal stuff starts to come in a little bit. But you go full stress, you stress yourself out to the max and you keep increasing the gap, stress is only going to go up more, right? So what happens then is you'll get reduction in potential metabolism. So for example, thyroid hormones start to downregulate, digestive function starts to downregulate, hunger hormones start to downregulate. or you start getting more hungry, cravings go up, and there's only so long you can keep that going. There's only so much willpower people have.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, man up and get on with it. You know, you're gonna crush it, beast mode, all that stuff. It's like there's only so long people can do that before they cave, because we're now in an environment where they can eat whatever food they want. Do you know what I mean? It's easy to walk down the shop and get whatever you want. If you're craving something, for example, or especially if it's in the cupboard, like you're having it. There's only so many times you're going to walk past that cupboard. It's going to keep calling you. So it's about allowing that process to come in. So like I said, with periodizing it, if somebody's sympathetic already, you might need to just start reducing that down. So if they're already sympathetic, they're probably going through lactate-based energy straight away and backing up their cells a little bit when they might actually need more aerobic work.
So hard, isn't it, like listening to that? I mean, because it makes clear sense to me, because we've been through it, we're experienced with working with people. But if you were someone that was, you know, it's December the 31st, you've knackered yourself over Christmas doing everything that you shouldn't do, or you know, it's springtime and you've just KO'd the, you know, more chocolate than Cadbury World makes in a day, and you're then thinking, I'm motivated, I want to go and I'm going to do loads of exercise, I'm going to do HiiT training, or another scenario, you're a personal trainer or a coach, you just qualified, and you're going, I'm going to go and make people fit, and you hear of like, go and make people active, go and do it. We're saying listen to people's lifestyle and well-being, and then factor that in, and the reality is they'll probably end up having to do less because their stress load is just through the roof. And that's a hard concept for people, because when you don't know the sports science about it and the nutrition, eating less and doing more makes sense, because that's what you think would work. Detox diets would work, and I think, you know, the version of detoxing in an exercise sense is HiiT training. Go and do loads and loads and loads in a short space of time. That's exactly what it is. So I think these kind of words in society, the detox and the transformation, all this terminology that we use, it's no wonder that people are confused, and that's where you get people with conflicting information. But
well, I get it, because it's Mark, you do need to catch people, and that's the problem with like social media, and I'm going through right now, we're trying to educate my page, and it's like you've got to be catching their eyes, they start to pay attention a little bit. So you're attracting a certain amount of people, but it's like the issue, that the main issue it is they're not taught physiology when they're taught their PT qualifications to a certain level. There's a little bit, but not to the extent of like what we're going into right now. So it's not a case of they can't do interval training. Interval training is fine, but like if we bring it back to what we started with in the first place, start light, less intense, more aerobic. So if you're sympathetic already, I would probably start you with aerobic work to bring the stress levels down, so you can start shutting through all the backed up energy that you've got, because that last phase of making energy, of ATP basically, so the adenosine triphosphate, big word, doesn't matter, basically it's energy, is you need oxygen for that. That last transfer to light it up and start burning it off, you need oxygen. So if you look at stressed out people, they're typically mouth breathers, so they're more in a sympathetic state, and they're more lactate driven. Right. So there's no oxygen, there's minimal oxygen coming in. So you start allowing them to bring their resting heart rate down through aerobics. You get an oxygen back into the system, and all of a sudden you're building more mitochondria, so the energy of the cells and the powerhouse of the cells. And now they're starting to churn through calories. They're starting to make energy. They're burning calories now better. So it's not as hard as you can go. It's less. This is the problem with the aerobics, is it has to be done to a certain level. So the less intense, the more volume you're going to need. So like I could go for a walk for 2 hours, right? And I could recover from that easy. And I would burn as many calories in that 2 hours as I would from an interval training session. The problem is it takes 2 hours. That's the main issue. So it's like people are now looking at, okay, can I get a walk-in treadmill at my desk? Things like that, so they can keep moving because it is typically lack of activity, and it's lack of that less stressful activity that people have. Because they don't move all day, then they go to the gym and think they've got to beast it. Right? It's a fact of knowing when you're going to do the less intense stuff and build it up to beasting it, or it's a combination of the two, so you can recover. And that's where the coaching aspect comes in. Where do I start? How do I get to where I need to go? You know?
The relativity of it is so important. I mean, you think someone that's doesn't do any activity, hardly walks, overweight, pressure on knees and joints that aren't very well conditioned anyway, for them, when you say walk on a treadmill, go on a cross trainer, sit on a bike and just pedal, walk, move, that's already high intensity for them.
Yeah.
It might not be on a I think that's where you sort of your RPE scale of, 10's enough and one's really easy. That's where the best coaches just go back to that and just go, look, for you right now, as you're walking on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you? And they're going to probably go 7 or 8, depending on who it is. I get that. And for them, that's high intensity. So I think that's another good starting block, but you can build on that. So I think sort of the takeaway and the go-to is for anyone listening, it's about improving your ability to withstand that level of pressure. And you've got to, like lifting a heavy weight above your head, you've got to build up. And you've got to get conditioned for it. Because if you're not in the right condition and you push it too hard, too fast, just like lifting a weight above your head, you're going to injure yourself, you're going to hurt yourself, and you're not going to be able to sustain it. So it's just not going to be it's not going to be an effective workout.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. And let's just then flip it then to the people that are fit and they are healthy then, because is it right for them and how are they doing it? Because you mentioned knowing not one RMs or knowing what power output level is at max. So for the people that are fit and healthy, that do listen and train regularly, how would you push the envelope for them? Because if they still want to build fitness and strength, what are they going to do?
If you want to get obviously more power output and get more capacity, in terms of, are we talking conditioning or both? Strength. So if you want to get better capacity, so let's put CrossFit as an example.
Mm-hmm.
It's a pretty, like, if it's done right, it's pretty good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think I did a post on this the other week where I had a question where somebody said, how do you get better at reps?
Mm.
Right. So I did a post on, I think it was like an incline press or whatever it was. Or let's say it was a standing shoulder press. So, because that might be in a CrossFit Games, for example. So you've got to do X amount of reps at a specific weight, because they typically give you specific weights, right? So let's say 60 kilos for reps overhead in a specific time frame. Well, if I want to get better at those reps, by default, if I get stronger, I'll automatically get better at those reps.
Yeah.
So if you're not putting strength work in, then you're missing a big part of the way you get, like, if you don't get strong, you can't endure reps.
Mm-hmm.
Make sense?
Yeah.
If you don't get strong, you're not going to be able to put on a little bit more muscle mass to produce more muscle fibers to get those strong and make those more enduring as well. So it's like, let's say my overhead press was, I don't know, 100 kilos, right? And then I improved. And if you look at that for one rep, 100 kilos for one rep, well, let's say my 12 RM was 70 kilos. So that's 70%. So if I can do 70 for 12 and 100 for 1, well, if I take my 1 to 120, by default, if you look at the percentages, now this isn't 100% accurate, of course, but you should technically, by then, your new 70 should be 85 kilos.
Yeah.
So if I go back to 70 kilos, well, technically I should be able to do 15 to 20 reps of that. Just by improving my strength. That's without going into, okay, well, now I'm going to go lighter. I'm going to put conditioning methods in for that, or accumulation or volume type methods in for that movement. And then you get more capacity benefits out of it. So it depends what the person's looking for. So if it's a CrossFit athlete, then there's definitely ways to program that in and put conditioning and capacity type work in there. If it's somebody that wants to improve their run, for example, well, now you've got something like a concurrent training system where all that means is you're going to do many different things in the week. So typically what I would look at then is you work in blocks. So if your performance is running, well, how much of my week is going to be based on running? How much of my week is going to be based on strength training to help my running performance?
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So typically if the goal is right, okay, I've got to improve my speed at my 10K or half marathon or whatever. Well, then the goal is to get better at running. So then you back off on the volume of strength training that you do. So it might be 2 sessions a week, and then you might do 4 sessions a week of your conditioning work. And then the volume is down on the strength, and it's just there for maintenance or small improvements over time, strength work.
think that's
I mean,
probably
so obviously it's always a depend.
That's some of the best advice, though, I think we've given, and I think some of the most important information we've given, because I think a lot of people take information from that's useful, because there are people that are fit and healthy that will listen to this thinking those guys know what they're doing. We don't want to keep talking about people that can't do it, because there's a lot of people that can do it.
Yeah.
I think for them, what you've just said there, whether you're into weightlifting or running, it could be a completely different sport. It doesn't matter. You know your numbers.
Yeah.
That's the important thing. You straight away, you knew what your shoulder press was. So you knew what your 1 rep max was. You knew what your 70% was. You knew what your 85%. That is what I think lets a lot of people down. Not knowing what the maximum is, not knowing what their ability is. And go back to that example of 10K, because it's really common. How do I get better at 10K? I just keep running 10K. And what I'll do is on a Monday, I'll go up hills, and on a Tuesday, I'll go on a flat, and on a Wednesday, I'll try and do some intervals. And you're just shifting around the deck chairs on the Titanic.
Yeah.
You're just not getting anywhere. You've got to know what the numbers are, and you've got to be able to plot against that. So that, again, if we go back to something you said earlier on in the podcast, why are you putting in that training session? Because if you don't know why you're putting it in and what it's going to amount to further on down the line, why have you done it in the first place? Because everyone that's listening to this that runs a 10K knows that they're going to enter a 10K. You know when the date is, you know what the distance is, you know what your training is. You should know what your minute mileage is, you should know what your heart rate is. You should have all of this down to a T. So you should be able to predict and plot your training up towards that 10K. What I see, and it's just what my observations are, people don't know that. They just run as fast as they can every mile and try and get better at repetition.
Yeah.
Trying to improve the reps by not actually pushing the envelope of strength. They're just doing reps. And then when they get to the event, they taper, knock it down for 2 weeks, and then go and do it and hope that it's miraculously they've recovered to a point where they've got stronger by doing nothing.
Yeah.
That's where that's where it all falls down. So I think that take-home messages are recovery, knowing numbers, knowing the level of intensity you want to work out, and then make sure that your rest, whether it be in between intervals or in between sessions, matches that. I think they're the key things. And then also building up your aerobic ability before you start going anaerobic, start pushing that hard.
If you look at before anybody does, like Charles, I remember studying with Charles, and he's saying that before you do any type of anaerobic work, you obviously build the capacity first. So you need to build your aerobic systems. So if your aerobic systems are there, you can come away from it. It won't take you long. So you don't really lose the aerobic work that you've developed.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's only so much you can improve it by, but it won't take you long to bring that straight back up.
Yeah.
So you can't be working the aerobic system for, let's say, 6 weeks. If you're working aerobics, you start with the capacity first. So basically the volume of it. So that's where you do like your 60 to 30 to anywhere from 30 minutes to 90 minutes of work. Continuous. So nice and light, nice and steady, you can keep it going. Then you go into like your aerobic interval work. So that's when you start bringing up the power a little bit. Then you will go into your anaerobic work.
Yeah.
So you're getting all those systems in place. But it flips with the anaerobic work. So the anaerobic, which is more your hard power intervals, you start with the power. So you get used to developing the power.
Yeah.
And then you build the capacity with the power that you just developed. So it flips it a little bit.
Yeah.
You just have to switch that around. So it's knowing things like that and planning that in. And and it's I think what we said about knowing your numbers, it's just tracking your data.
Yeah.
Like tracking your workouts. A lot of people don't track workouts. So you just go in, they're on Instagram or whatever, and while they're in between sets or they're watching Netflix while they're sat on a bike or whatever, it's like, am I improving? What time should I be hitting on this workout? Do you know what I mean? It's like things like that where, and if you look at like some of the good fit people that do well in like this, say for example, the 10K or the long distance stuff, it's like, if you look at the majority, 80% of their week, that's in like low level intensity work.
Yeah.
They're recovering, they're getting better at distance, they're getting better at working at lower heart rate levels, and they'll probably only 20% of their week will be high intensity.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So they can recover from it, and they're improving all the time. So
definitely. Anyone that's thinking about some of the words that we've mentioned today, you can find it all if you look up for energy systems and look at that. There's not a million of them. These 3 main energy systems you're looking for. So we're talking about developing your energy system and your ability to do that. So it's quite a simple Google search. It's not too heavy science or anything that you need for it. So it's just an understanding of whether you're working at a recovery rate and a rate that improves your general fitness, or a rate that pushes you to a maximal level, or a really high level, shall we say. So that's all we're trying to explain here. So bit of fun to finish with then, Gav. Your favorite interval method for you, whether it be a piece of equipment, a style, or a specific workout you've done. What is it for you that's like, you never love doing it, but afterwards you go, geez, that was it? What was it for you? Is there anything that ever, even in your whole life, even like when you were younger, when you was training, is there anything that got you?
There's a couple.
I think I know one of them you're going to say, so go on.
Go on, you go first. Tell me what you think it is.
I think it's going to be, you're going to talk about that leg training camp you went on when you fell asleep. Was you doing, you went over to Rhode Island?
Oh, mate.
Is that the one? And you was doing, was it leg press or squats? And you just put it down, you was like, I've got to go to sleep.
Mate, over there, so basically on the PICP stuff.
Yeah.
I was over in Rhode Island a few times. It was like hypertrophy camps, body comp camps before I started working for the Poliquin Group. And I was over there. I did my level 3 and 4. So basically, you can be qualified in your level 2. I'd say you get certified. But level 3, level 4, and level 5, you have to have trained like certain level of athlete, and they have to have been awarded a title or whatever in their sport, right? But you can go and do the content without being certified. So you can just go and do the content, and then you've got to actually apply it.
Yeah.
So I've gone over, I did level 3 back in 2000, God, years ago. But then I went back and did level 3 again, but I did it back to back with level 4 because they developed a little bit of material, it changed a bit. So I was like, right, let's just go and do it. So it was 10 days. And obviously on the content, like you're going through specific methods to get people stronger. So you're using chains, bands, contrast training, all this stuff, like these advanced methods to get people strong and help athletes perform. And obviously then you go into energy systems as well. So you're doing like strongman training, energy system type training as well, where it's like we were lifting, I think it was like a 550-pound tire. So let's say that's 250 kilos. So you do 3 to 5 reps, and then we're in a group of 6 or 5 or 6. So it's like you go, I go type thing. So you go to the back of the queue, and then you wait till it's your turn again, you go again. So we're doing 3 to 5, we had to do 10 sets of that. And then we were doing farmers walks or yokes after that for like 50 meters, you go, I go type thing again. Mate, the farmers walks, because obviously the 550-pound tire, I'm gonna get my hands underneath it.
Yeah.
So I'm lifting, like my forearms are getting toast.
Yeah.
Like they're gone. So then after that, I got thick grip farmers walks after that. The next morning, I physically, my right hand, I couldn't clasp my toothbrush. I was pushing my hand together to hold the toothbrush, and I was just like wiggling my face on the toothbrush. I couldn't use my arms at all. It was gone. But we were doing 2 a days for 10 days straight.
Oh man.
I was absolutely gone. Absolutely gone. By day 6, I was thinking I wasn't going to make it. Luckily, there's some top coaches there, so like ART practitioners, so that I was getting treatments every day trying to get through it. But it was brutal. But that one there, we did a strongman one there, and there was a couple of my staff there with me as well. We finished the strongman. I was led there for half an hour, like I couldn't move. I managed to get to the shower, and all of a sudden I hear, like I'm in the shower, this door burst open, and there's a guy just throwing up in the bathroom. It's like, who's that? And he's like, it's Gary. Ugh. He's throwing up in the toilet. One of my staff was throwing up. Like, it was horrendous. So strongman training, you can make, like, this is the difference, right? You can make that as anaerobic as you want, or you can make it as aerobic as you want. The only difference is the intensity you run at. Yeah. The load you're going to use. So that's one start, like the one you mentioned there. That was a good one. I enjoyed, funnily enough, I enjoyed it. If we're talking straight conditioning, there's something like, I think it was Lyle McDonald, I read this years ago, that you would do something like 10 to 15 seconds all out. And then you take 45 to 50 seconds, very light recovery. You go again for like 10 to 15 minutes. And then the rest of the time for the 50 to 60 minutes is your steady state. So basically you're getting as much sympathetic systems as you can. So you're driving cortisol up to drive as much fatty acids into the bloodstream. And then the rest of the time just cycling off, just burning some energy. So what you've got in the bloodstream So from a fat loss perspective, that worked very well for stubborn fat loss. I've used that quite a few times with clients and myself as well. So that would take that, you could do that on like an air bike, a watt bike, something like that. That's pretty good. But the other one, like if you go to the other end of the spectrum, like you're probably going to deplete. So I did this with a few fighters as well, but probably deplete yourself of fat loss too. Is 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off. You do 2 to 3 rounds, you rest 5 minutes, and you do about 3 cycles to that if you can get there.
Yeah.
So it's like as much as you can. So you basically, if you go flat out from second 1, you basically deplete all of the energy stores as you go through the 2 to 3 minutes. Like it's absolutely horrendous. So you'll notice if you're on an air bike or the watt bike, you'll notice it by the sound of the air coming out. So like the first like 10, 15 seconds, all of a sudden it goes, so you can hear again slower.
Yeah.
So you're going through that ATP system. Adenosine, I won't go into the names because we've gone through too many names today. But you basically plow through all the creatine first. You then start to break down glycogen. And then by the end, you're just gasping for air. You're drooling all over yourself, just trying to you cannot stop. You're not allowed to stop moving. So it doesn't matter how slow you go. You just got to keep moving. And you take whatever time period you do that for, you rest, you get back on and do it again.
Yeah.
Like mentally, it's the biggest mental challenge you'll go through.
Yeah.
Because you've done it once, you've depleted yourself, and you think, holy shit, I got to do that again. Right. So it's absolutely brutal. So that was a fun one.
Jesus. I think once you know, we talked about numbers today, once you know those numbers and you're trying to replicate them in intervals, you know you're in a world of problems. I mean, I've many years of watt bike teaching people and educating. Once you knew your maximum outputs and you knew what to do, I remember a bit of a name drop coming in, so just back away from the walls for a minute, but we did the world's tallest bike cycling class. It was on the Shard in London.
Oh, I remember saying that.
We had England rugby players. My favourite there was Sally Gunnell. She was so funny, just trying to like talk to me to sort of get out of it a bit. Do you know what I mean? Like, so can you tell me a bit more about this? Like, I was laughing about it. And then Jonathan Edwards was there, triple jumper. Jonathan Edwards, brilliant, just a really nice person. I said, yeah, I've got one at home. That's why when they talked about doing this, I'd come down and do it, just because I'd love to come down and just get a bit more insight about it. He was really just humble, just a great guy. But I said, what kind of sessions do you do on your watt bike? He said, my favourite session is 2 minutes on, 2 minutes off, six times. I was like, okay, yeah, all right. Go home that night. Guess what Marvin's doing? Get the conservatory windows open. Let's go. I think I got to about 3. I got to 3 and I was like, this guy's insane. The guy's mad.
It's absolutely
horrific. And I couldn't get to the 6. I just couldn't do it. I mean, I remember we used to get a lot of athletes down. There's a really good cyclist called Joanna Rousell, and she came and did a load of gym openings and cycling events, and I'd go down as sort of the trainer and she'd come as a celebrity. I mean, work that one out. I mean, come on, me, a B person, she should be assisting moi. Anyway, really, and another amazing person. She's a really nice person. And I said, what sessions do you do? And she was like, I cycle at 95 RPM for a minute, and then I go down to 90 for a minute, and I just keep going 95, 90, 95, 90. There's only 5 RPM difference. And she like, well, I'll do that. And that's my interval session. So I'll do that for sort of 30, 45 minutes. Gav, multiple gold medalist, world champion, track and outside. You just start, and you just going up by 5 RPM, down by 5 RPM. Then the margins, and we always talk about the margins about the first and last at the Olympics, but their training is so fine-tuned. She can tell you specifically what number she's doing at what time, what amount, and it's just through the roof. So there's some of my favorite sessions at home. But I think in a group or in my life, we used to do pre-season football training back in the 90s and 2000s when coaching wasn't about sports science. It was about who you can kill. I think they were the worst days. I was in a football academy, and they were tough, and we had a really steep hill. They'd take you somewhere with a really steep hill. It was always the same. It was get with a partner, same height and weight as you. There was no one same height and weight as me because I weigh as much as a 7-foot bloke. But so you'd pair up with somebody. It's like, right, get them on your back, up and down the hill. And you just, we had this interval session called 21 runs. And there was 3 types of run. There was a short run, a medium run, and a long run. Now, the coaches at the time weren't intelligent to figure out they were based on energy systems. They wouldn't know. But it was just basically, I'm either going to say it's a short, a medium, or a long. That's what you're going to do. There are 7 runs in each category, but they randomize the order. So you're never going to know. So if we do 21 runs today and we do 21 runs next week, it won't be the same order.
Yeah.
You go down and do 21 runs. Gav, it was disgusting. And at the time, the 30-second rest on whoever finished first. Well, I was a goalkeeper when I first started. I wasn't finishing first. I was finishing last.
Yeah.
So I just keep going. And it was just horrific. And it was that same thing, people being sick. They'd always do it on a Tuesday because Monday was student night. So we was always at the local nightclub on a Monday night till 3-4 in the morning, knowing that 8 o'clock the next morning we was at football training, and he would thrash us because he knew we was all out drinking, to a point where, go on.
Think of it this way. It's fit, like, even though they didn't know the energy systems, think how smart that is.
Yeah.
Right.
It was,
so you take 30 seconds rest for the person that finishes first.
Yeah.
So what's that doing for the person that finishes last? They're continually it's going to kill them, right?
Yeah, but they're still building it.
Exactly. So they're still building, but the intensity drops that much.
Yeah.
That they're doing aerobic work because they can't keep it up. So it's actually giving them what they need.
Well, this is it, Gav. So this is how the tail finishes. So this was a 2-year college sort of football academy, and it's a bit like the American system with scholarships where you study and play, and if your grades drop at college, then they'll take you out of the team. Right. So it was part of that. So I joined in my second year. The first year I was there just doing the training, but the second year I joined, and it was the point where I was at my heaviest in my life. And before fitness, I was just overweight and just not in shape. But I still love playing football. I'm still a football player. So I was a goalkeeper, semi-pro or the equivalent of. And then I was third choice. And they're like, look, you only got a year left at college, so you're never going to get ahead of someone that's just starting a 2 or 3 year course, because we'd rather train them and get them in the first team than waste time with you for a year, knowing that in a year you're going. So if you get to the good level, you probably won't get any games. Do you still want to be a part of the academy? Of course I do. Because long story short, I'm in probably one of the most racist places in Britain, and I can't go out of college. I can't leave college because there was literally people, a bit of a bad story, but there's people at the gates with bats waiting for me. And they had barbed wire around a bat, and they would chase me at home. So I needed to get fit to survive, because if I wanted to leave college early, early means the college bus came at 5 on a Monday morning. My day finished at 10:30 in the morning. I was waiting till 5 because I can't leave campus till the college bus is there. I had to get fit to get to the public bus, but to get to the public bus, I had 12 people with bats and knives waiting for me at the door. So I kept doing the 21 runs, knowing that it was going to build my fitness.
Yeah.
By the end of the season, when I made my debut in that team, because I never made the first team, guess what position I was? I wasn't goalkeeper.
Yeah.
I was striker. They brought me in a cup game on a Wednesday, and I came on and scored my first touch. By the end of the season, I won 21 runs, every single run, all 21. And that was when I started my career in fitness. I was fitter than any player in the team, from the third choice goalkeeper to the fittest person in the whole academy. And then it went on from that, and the rest is history. But it was driven by the intent of, 1, motivation, and 2, just keep going, because you'll get somewhere.
Exactly. Got purpose then. Like, you look at the purpose to get fit in that situation, you've got more purpose than anybody else on the team.
Yeah. There you go. Boom. Let's leave it at that. It's a good chat, and people know. And if you want to know more about my history, then there's a book coming out. Anyway, no, it's good. Good chat, good talk, good discussion. I think lots of people listen to this because high intensity interval training is important. A lot of people do like it.
I've got one more before we go. One more.
Go on then. Go on.
It was a test that, going back to football, it's good for sports. It's actually good for field sports.
Yeah.
A little test. It'll work your energy systems max, but it tells you what you need to work on as well. So it's a nice little test that you can do. So basically you do 30 on, 30 off. You do 6. Okay. But basically you get cones and you put them at things like 5-meter intervals. So basically, as you start the timer, you run to the first cone, so that's 5 meters. You run back, that's 10.
Yeah.
You then pass the first cone, run to the second, so that's 15, 20. 25, 30. Do you know what I'm saying? So every
I do,
five, you build up the amount of meters that you run in the 30 seconds. You get 30 seconds off, you go again, right? So if you look at that over the 6, you can total up obviously how many meters you run in that time. So then if you do it again, you can see if you run more meters. But what you can do is each of the 30 seconds, you can see whether you need to work on more power or more capacity. So for example, if you kept hitting the same number every one of the 6, you were consistent. So let's say you did 200 meters every time. Well, your capacity might not be the issue. You might need more power. You know what I'm saying? But if you only hit, let's say you hit 200 or 250, and then you went 150, 100, 100, 100, right? You need to work on more capacity.
Yeah.
So you need to develop the capacity situation there. So that was a nice little drill. I think Owen Lacey from the Irish Strength Institute took me through that. And it was based off a strength coach called Dan Baker from Australia. So he's really good for field sports. So he runs his athletes through things like that. And he can then tell what they need to work on. And then he'll give them specific conditioning drills based off that.
Yeah.
Now, that was literally brutal.
Yeah.
I was in a bush after the 6 sets of 30 on 30 off, because you're going flat out. Yeah. And the best thing about it is you're doing it with a team.
Yeah.
So you're pushing each other, like you're going, right? But another thing as well is, if you think about how specific it is, you're running to a cone, turning, running back. You're making it very specific to the sport as well.
Yeah.
So it's like you've got to turn and twist and stuff on the field. So you can see exactly what they need to work on there. It was a really good test, but it's a tough workout as well.
Yeah. Quite anything with a turn in it tells you a lot about different players and different abilities and positions as well. I mean, as an Arsenal fan, it was always Thierry Henry was the fastest on the ball, but when it came to turning and accelerating in short distances, you had at the time 2 other players that were much quicker, and there was Theo Walcott,
David Ginola.
Don't worry about talking, mate. Freddie Lundberg as well. Freddie Lundberg was unbelievable. He was shorter. He could turn very quickly.
Raw Fox, yeah.
What are you talking about? Right. We're talking about the unbeatable football, the only team to ever. Right. Good session today, Gav. Good. We'll be back for another show shortly, soon. If you've got any feedback on this topic or any other, at Gavin Attore on Instagram or at MarvinV360. You can come to us, see what we do, look at our content, put smiley faces on images and pictures, which is good. Or see how often Gav has his coffee in the morning, how he likes the Italian likes his coffee.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. Nice one. Thanks for joining us, and we'll speak to you again on another show.
Speak to you in a bit.